Good morning and welcome to the AutoTalk weekly wrap live thingy that I kind of refuse to name because I think it's funnier that way. Joining me today is from, I'm guessing, Chile, Wellington, David Crawford.
Good morning. It was chilly this first thing this morning, 0.1 of degree C frost. Everything was white, but it's warmed up a little bit since then.
Yes. Up here in sunny Northland, I think we got down to like 4 or 5. But that's by the water. I gather, like, a little bit out back towards the hills. There was some frost this morning, but we don't seem to have anything quite where we are by the beach. But yes, now Graeme is still away, but he is back next week, I believe. Or at least he's back in New Zealand. Hopefully he's back on the show next week. He is still in sunny, warm California. And he sent us, as he has for most of these episodes, a wee bit of a message. And before I run this, there's a couple of people watching us live. Say hello. Jump on those comments and say hello. Anyway, here we go.
Good morning, AutoTalk, and welcome from sunny Ventura, California. Well, as you can see, not so sunny. It's about 8:30 in the morning here, and due to Ventura sitting on the coast, we've got an inversion layer that creeps its way in the mornings and the evenings, and although it's probably brilliant sunshine and apparently about 105 degrees Fahrenheit out in Greater Los Angeles, here in Ventura, it's pretty chilly. Here's a funny thing. We're right on the beach. It's a beautiful little inn right on the beach in California, except behind me you can hear, of all things American, a freeway. They've built the freeway between the beach and the town. So to get to the actual beach itself, you've got to sort of cross the highway to actually get to the sand. Go figure. As you can also see behind me there, it's the 4th of July, it's flag waving day, and we're off to go and do some pretty epic, I hope, 4th of July things. I am on the Big Bird, coming home in a couple of days and ending my American adventures. It's interesting just looking at how the differences between the automotive sector in Australia, in the United States and New Zealand, how it fares. I'll be talking about that, I'm sure, on the show in the weeks to come, but certainly taking the time to have a little look and see what makes it tick over here as far as cars are concerned. Meantime, I see the numbers for the month of June were, to be honest, pretty pants. And I'm really sorry if you're in the industry like we all are over there at the moment. Sounds like it's really, really brutal times, and I hope it's going to pick up at some stage, and we'll see some light at the end of the tunnel. Meantime, everyone, have a fantastic July the 5th rather than July the 4th. I'm already in that, and I'll see you when I get back.
Times are tough, says the man swanning around America for 6 weeks in a Mustang convertible.
Was that what he was driving?
Yes, and which I hope that Hertz or whoever it was renting it doesn't see his social media, because it looked like they got that thing rather buried in a wash the other day. So yeah, I'm hoping Mr. McDonald took out the, well, I know Mr. McDonald does, because Mr. McDonald normally took out the comprehensive walkaway insurance. I'm sure we'll hear about it next week. He's been enjoying that, obviously, and yeah, he'll be back. Interesting time in America at the moment, obviously, with a very long run up to the election. And I'll say what's on a lot of people's minds: how is it that a country of 400 million people can only come up with those two fools to lead their executive branch?
And I think there's about 300 million Americans asking exactly the same question.
Yeah, it seems to be just like 4 or 5 million people in the middle that actually get to make the choice. And if you're watching the British election, well, that is pretty much a foregone conclusion now. I think according to the latest exit polls we've seen, what is it, 410 Labour MPs and 130 Conservative MPs. That's crazy. Disturbingly, I think there's a handful of Reform UK people who got in there as well, but hopefully they won't have any great power, or something they won't, because Labour's got such a massive mandate there. It's been an interesting one to watch, that one, and it's going to be interesting to see how that reflects in New Zealand in the next few years, because I think what we're seeing in the UK is that endless austerity and cutting has to come to an end at some point, and it collapses over itself at one point, and that's what we've seen in the UK.
And contrast the swing to the left in the UK compared to swings to the right in Europe. Interesting times.
Yes, yes. Well, I think what you've actually seen is that middle right kind of moving. So they've gone left, but then at the same time, the right of the right has gone to
Further
some of
right.
that Reform UK and that kind of thing. So that's probably the concern, which we did see a little bit in New Zealand. I mean, we saw a lot of people who kind of switched between Labour and National at the last election shift National, but I think we saw some diehard National voters shift further right into ACT, and New Zealand First, once a centrist party, now probably more certainly socially on that further right scheme. So yeah, it's interesting to see the way politics are going. The middle is deserting, unfortunately, which is probably where you want people to be. But anyway, also deserting us are car buyers, and we'll get that to the minute. But we're going to run through this news in, I think, reverse order, just because it's the easiest way to go. And starting off with Winger Auckland takes on 4 major brands, and it's a little bit interesting one because some of these brands are kind of returning from when they were sold split off under Grant Vincent's control a few years back. So Wingers Motors Limited has become the official dealer for Hyundai, Isuzu, Renault, KGM and LDV in Auckland on July 1, 2024. It also took over the West Auckland franchise for Hyundai and Isuzu Ute at 156 Central Park Drive, Henderson, and that location is now known as Winger Motors West Auckland. Winger Motors has also welcomed 53 additional staff from Auckland Vehicles Group, which previously looked after these brands. Hyundai and Isuzu brands are now located at the Winger Motors Green Lane dealership at Great South Road and Campbell Road, and then Renault, KGM and LDV are now located at Winger Motors Commercial Green Lane, 460 Great South Road. Seems odd to have Renault there, but I guess Renault is predominantly a commercial brand in New Zealand these days with the vans. So yeah, that's an interesting one because of course a lot of that was originally part of the Winger Group, and Grant Vincent bought elements of that business and left with that a number of years back. There has been some talk and some rumours around a pending sale of Auckland Vehicles Group to another party in recent months, but that seems to have gone the by, and we've ended up with those going back to Wingers. Interesting to see. I think we're going to see a lot more of this amortization of brands. I think the big are going to get bigger potentially over the next few months. Are you expecting the same thing, David?
Yes, I think there will be quite a shift in both new and used dealership type arrangements at the larger end. I think it's consolidation, realignment. Those that are struggling are getting out before they get to too big a debt. It is an interesting time, and we saw the number of dealers grow. Have been growing consistently until about 18 months ago, as the New Zealand new car market grew. It's not growing this year. So we expected consolidation and realignment. Efficiency comes with scale. So I think that's what's happening.
And
but
it's
interesting. Sorry, it's an interesting group of brands. You're right, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's basically the old Winger Group coming back together, essentially, isn't it? Hyundai and so forth, they were all under that originally, and Auckland Vehicles was the new one, so it's kind of gone out and it's gone back in, been reabsorbed into the mothership as such. I think it's going to be interesting. We'll see a lot of this condensing of brands over the next little bit, and it's unlikely that those will split out again, but there's a lot of talk, and I think that we see a lot more Chinese brands arrive and grow in coming years, and perhaps other electric vehicle brands from other places. So potentially the refracturing of the industry will probably come more from new brands coming in than necessarily those franchises going back out into independent operation. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. Now, New Zealand Cheap Cars opens a 4th branch in Botany. NZ Cheap Cars opened its 4th branch at 352 East Tamaki Road in Botany. Founded in December 2022, NZ Cheap Cars says is reaching the milestone of 5,000 vehicle sales. NZ Cheap Cars was recognised recently by BuyScore as one of the top 5 largest dealerships in Auckland. The opening of our Botany location is a testament to our continued growth and dedication to serving the Auckland community, NZ Cheap Cars Chief Executive Michael Yang says. Now, of course, the big thing there is that NZ Cheap Cars is, I guess, in part the project of Eugene Williams, the former co-founder of Two Cheap Cars, and they have a wee bit of a habit of putting their dealerships near to two cheap cars. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a measurement here. I'm looking up on maps, two cheap cars botany. Let's have a look at this. So that's there. Now, if we go directions to NZ cheap cars botany. Yep, that place to type. 1.3 kilometers. That's a big gap for a two cheap cars. Two cheap cars.
As you were talking about this, I was musing because Graeme and I were mentioning to you months ago that we wish these guys would go quiet, and so we didn't have to talk about them every week on the show. and the good news is we haven't been talking about them.
Yeah. So
to a certain extent they've pulled their head in and got on with the business of importing and selling cars, and they're seem to be doing okay. Well, all power to them. Good on them.
Yeah.
It's good that they put that infighting, that public fighting behind them. It needed to be done.
Look, they've got the same model. I think the interesting thing at the moment is that NZ Cheap Cars has the ability to do it without necessarily a lot of the overhead that Too Cheap has from being a listed company, but by the same token, Too Cheap has the volume already, the momentum, the capital behind them, so they can probably be a little more flexible as well. So yeah, interesting to see what either of those do. Now, additional CCS fees should be at point of sale via the Imported Motor Vehicle Industry Association. VIA has called for incoming fees to be charged, a fee set to be charged at the point of start again.
Point of sale. Point of sale.
Yeah. Incoming fees set to be charged to fund the running of the Clean Car Vehicle, or the Clean Vehicle Importer Standard, also known as the Clean Car Standard, and apparently the Clean Vehicle Standard as well, depending on how the minister's feeling each day, should be paid at the point of registration. Changes passed to the legislation last week shift the burden for running the system from the government to importers. So we'll touch on this a bit further. It has passed through through Parliament. There wasn't any further consultation, but I suspect there'll be more consultation on the changing of the rates. Maybe we'll see. But what this does is it allows the government or the minister to to adjust the changes as a point of secondary legislation or regulation, as opposed to having to go back through the full parliamentary hoo-ha. So basically, VIA is saying that these fees to run the system should be upfront, clear, not build onto the industry as such, but be part of the registration process, which is a take, I guess.
It is a take, and good on him for trying. But what he's doing, of course, is ignoring one of the key design features of a clean car standard or a fuel economy standard versus a discount. So discount is at the point of sale because it's visible, or a fee, a clean car fee. But with a standard, because it's aggregate, it is on the importer. But it's complicated for used vehicles because you can do it on a standard on a vehicle by vehicle import. But the point is,
I think the most common outcome at the moment is that this fee will be on a vehicle by vehicle basis.
Well, that's how a lot of people are making it happen. But from a policy perspective, the policy said this is an impost on the importer, and the importer's got to balance it. How the importer then chooses to display the fee is up to them. But I guess good on him for having a go, but I don't think it will happen. Now, coming back to your comments on this having gone through Parliament, so he can set it by regulation. Will he consult on it? I'm going to hedge my bets and say that he won't. If there are changes to the penalties, in other words, how much you pay per unit, I think he has to consult. I think changes to actual fees or the penalties would have to be consulted on. But if you're just,
I think what they're going to change is targets. Targets will be what they change.
That's right. If they're just changing the targets, there's no cost implication other than when the costs start to be paid or not paid. And technically, he doesn't have to consult on that, and they didn't last time. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. The other aspect to that is, I think this is obviously showing that they are down the track on this project, and so I suspect anyone who's sitting on a lot of credits at the moment more so in the user market where there seems to be a little more liquidity around how those are being moved around, would need to keep an eye on what they've got sitting there, because of course any shift of the target's going to change the value of those credits. So if you have got a few sitting there, maybe it's the time to sit down with your accountant or your buyer or whoever's doing your forward planning and work out whether you aren't better off, shifting some stuff around now before the value of those change, or hold off on buying credits. If you're looking at buying credits and you can avoid buying it for now, then maybe there's the ability to save by waiting.
It's another consequential impact with changing regulations.
Yes,
but I think most in the industry would say, this is a hit we're kind of prepared to take if the targets are softened and are going to take longer to achieve. Then we get screwed a little bit, but we'd rather be screwed a little bit than screwed a lot if the targets are not changed.
Yes, because I don't think they'll necessarily change the penalties, but if they were to reduce the targets, then that reduces the demand for those credits. That's less are going to be needed in the short term. So
yes, the slope of change will lessen, and therefore you've got more time to reach the target. So your annual impulse gets less if they soften the targets.
Now, we had the Centrix Consumer Credit Report Consumer and Business Credit Report coming out this week, and the Financial Services Federation did a little bit of analysis, and they're noting just this ongoing shift from people putting on the mortgage to going and slapping the car on dealer finance, though that is getting harder. High interest rates and cost of living mean homeowners are feeling financial pressure, with new data from credit reporting agency Centrix showing the mortgage arrears are up 12% year on year, while vehicle loan arrears dropped to 5.5% in May compared to 5.7% in 2023. Those in the market for a new motor vehicle, it's a reminder to stop and think before adding a big purchase onto a mortgage, says Lynn McMorrin, Executive Director of FSF. Adding a vehicle to a mortgage that still has 20 plus years to run with fluctuating interest rates can mean a borrower ends up paying many times more in interest than they originally borrowed. So yes, it's just a good reminder there that it's very much the time that you need to make sure you are qualifying your buyers when they say, I'm a cash buyer or I've got my finance sorted. Qualify them. I know your buy rate's probably up quite a bit at the moment, but it's probably not necessarily that bad in the context of what's going on elsewhere. And also, if your finance company is still lending, I'm hearing not all of them are necessarily doing it in as high a volume as they used to. Make the most of it. So another piece of profit to keep the lights on as well.
Yeah, my advice is don't put a car purchase on your mortgage unless you've got very little to pay and you can pay it off in a normal amount of time. Putting your car purchase on the mortgage is a recipe for paying a lot more money than you need to, and it's just generally not good advice.
Yes. Now, new Cambridge franchise holder for Mitsubishi Motors. From July 1, Ingham Cambridge becomes the new franchise holder for Mitsubishi Motors in Cambridge. The Mitsubishi Motors brand will share the current Ingham Cambridge site's forecourt and showroom space with the Nissan brand. Interesting placement they're seeing as Nissan and Mitsubishi are moving a lot closer together in regards to product. In addition to selling new vehicles, in Cambridge will be Mitsubishi Motors authorized parts and service dealer. Kate Automotive previously handled this. Introducing Mitsubishi represents a step forward for Ingham Cambridge, says dealer principal Ross Dodds. We're thrilled to extend our offerings with greater flexibility, variety, and scope, ensuring every customer finds a vehicle perfectly aligned to their lifestyle needs. Rah, rah, rah. That's the fourth Mitsubishi franchise for Ingham. Makes a lot of sense to get a bit more out of that showroom space there. And I think, the Waikato economically still actually ticking on okay. People need to eat, people need to drink milk, and those areas are hopefully still doing pretty well. Now,
Nissan and Mitsubishi do make good partners given the alliance between the two manufacturers and that each brand is sort of trying to specialize in certain areas. So it's a team up that does make some logic.
Yes. Now, speaking of things that aren't doing so well at the moment, we have the vehicle statistics of the month. We'll just touch on the used import market first. Registrations of used imports fell more than 53% in June 2024 to 7,828 units from 16,674 in the previous corresponding period. The huge year-on-year decline was inevitable as June 2023 saw a surge in the used car market as buyers rushed to secure a clean car discount on hybrids before the clean car discount subsidy on vehicles reduced. Depending on what the vehicle was on July 1, 2023. again, Twitter, usually the usual market structure, of course, Twitter topping the market. But Twitter has been taking a higher and higher share of used imports in the last year or two as the Aqua and Prius just continue to dominate. Hybrids are the way. But even for them, at 2,800 registrations, it was down from 5,800 last year. Aqua top selling, Prius second, Corolla third, Excella fourth. So, yes. Used import commercials down 56% year on year to 443 units. If we go over to the news side of the ledger, I have had a number of people in the new car trade, including some car heads, come to me in the last few days going, what do you think of the market? What are we looking at, And I go, to be honest, I don't know. Registration of vehicles fell more than 67% in June 2024 to 5,565 units from 17,234 in the previous corresponding period. So I think you can pretty much ignore the previous corresponding period. What you've got to realistically look at is the fact that these historically are very low figures for these months. June has been a frustrating time for many new car dealers. Some have already consolidated their franchise into a smaller showroom footprint or added new brands. The final trading of the month, 1am, reported 2 new car sales in its entire network. Part of the substantial year-on-year decline can be attributed to change in the clean car discount structure, which you've mentioned. Toyota led the market. But again, even they were down 62%. Mitsubishi down 64%. Kia down 70%. Hyundai down 53%. Suzuki down 65%. Ford down 54%. That's on the passenger car side. In commercials were down 46%, and that is a month which had a field days in it. But so down to 3,355 units. I wouldn't be surprised that if in the last decade there weren't years where they sold that many utes at field days, or at least took expressions of interest on them. Things are good. Things are not great.
That's a decade low when you look at year to date. And if you look at the June figures for this year and ignore the last COVID 4 years and interventions and look at the trend, 3,500 for light commercials was a good figure to get in 2014, 2015. But it's not a good figure to get now because our population's grown significantly since then. So yeah, it is tough. This has been building, and we know that it's been building. Those that are dealing with hybrids are still doing better than others because they still have a good value proposition, whether used or new. And it's interesting to note that Toyota, when you compare Toyota and Lexus figures for the first 6 months of this year to the first 6 months of last year, Toyota is tracking only about 2 or 3% below. And Lexus is, I think, still ahead. So they're doing okay, but you look at their mix, it's almost all hybrid. So it's an interesting time, but it's, as Graeme noted in his video, it is tough. It is really tough.
Yeah. When do you think it's going to bounce back? We keep hearing stay alive to 25, but I'm just not even that sure it's going to be that long. I'm hearing there is some movement in the fleet market now, actually a little bit around electric vehicles. But out to the private market, I think the economy's got to improve a heck of a lot, and the small business market.
I think when we see interest rates start to come down, you might see it start to move, but I think it's still hang on to 25. I've had some comments from a few dealers who are comparing both sale of used stock and new stock and the volume of servicing through their service departments. It's slower and tougher than it was through the GFC. And they think that it's actually taking longer to bite. So it is pretty difficult to know, Richard, how this is going to play out. But it is, unless the interest rates come down, this is going to drag on. So it's all hinges on getting that inflation under control.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there was that comment in regards to the closing days of the month being particularly bad, is that this might not be the end. This might not be rock bottom yet. We may have months that slump even further, and that's worrisome. I guess we get another rental car spike later in the year, which will be, I suspect, some brands will be fighting over vigorously. I wouldn't be surprised if those deals, which will start being done now, will probably be some of the sharpest that we've seen in a few years. it's going to be a wild ride for the rest of the year. Yeah. Now, speaking of, we mentioned before that, we think probably new brands, particularly out of China, are going to be what's going to start filling in once we start to expand the dealer networks again. Armstrong's is reintroducing the Smart brand to New Zealand. It's not the Smart we used to know with those cute little roller skate cars that even I fitted in, and I really enjoyed driving them. After being absent for more than a decade, Armstrong's has won the exclusive distribution rights to represent the Smart automobile EV brand in New Zealand. The brand became a joint venture between Mercedes-Benz and Geely Holdings in 2009 with the formation of Smart Automobile Co. Limited and Smart Europe GmbH to reduce the market electric vehicles globally from 2022 onwards. Armstrong Mercedes-Benz retail dealerships in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and Dunedin will incorporate a store within a store format to host smart showrooms offering a full sales and service experience for the brand's clients. The Smart range for New Zealand will start with the #1 and #3 models and several trims. And there'll be a Brabus model with 0 to 100 kilometer an hour times as low as 3.6 seconds. There'll be a #5 SUV EV model as well along the lines. Further down the line, we are very honoured to have this opportunity to represent Smart Automobile in New Zealand. Armstrong's founder and chair, Rick Armstrong, says, "It fits perfectly with our existing Mercedes-Benz representation through New Zealand and key centres and will provide a separate but very complementary product offering." I think it's interesting there that the vehicles are being hosted in Mercedes-Benz dealerships, but this is not being done by Mercedes-Benz. And I guess there's an element there of this isn't purely a Mercedes-Benz brand. It's a joint venture, and I guess by going direct, they can cut some cost out of it somewhere and also not have that direct overseeing from Mercedes. For those interested, the product itself is based on the same platform as the Volvo EX30. So I've driven that. Good product. I'm sure this will be pretty the same. Very well reviewed out of Europe as well. Yeah.
It's nice to see the brand come back.
Yes. Have you ever driven one of the little ones?
I have. It's a hoot. You do feel kind of exposed, but parking was just always such an incredible feat.
Good old nose to curb parking. Now, Ishikawa acting Toyota New Zealand chief executive as Lala takes leave. Toyota New Zealand's chief executive Neeraj Lala has been temporarily replaced with the head of the country's largest vehicle distributor while taking leave for personal reasons. Toyota Motor Corporation's secondment to the local operation and current vice president chief operating officer Tatsuya Ishikawa will assume Lala's responsibilities. Toyota New Zealand has not confirmed the length of Lala's absence. Of course, Neeraj was a guest in our last episode. We hope all is well and that he is back and on the ground sooner rather than later. He's a nice guy. I know he's got some controversial ways of being out there. He's quite open and public for the head of a car company, but I quite like Neeraj, and I hope he is back in the trade soon enough. You must have worked with him a fair bit.
Yes, I have, and the announcement did come as a surprise to a lot of people. So I hope it's not something serious in terms of health or anything like that. So all the best, and look forward to seeing him back at some point in the future.
Now, last story of the day, Turners is basically seeing this market and going, screw you guys, we're going to do our own stuff with blackjack and hookers. That's a Futurama reference for those who don't know. Turners sets $65 million profit target by financial year 2028. Turners Automotive Group has released its annual report following a record financial year 2024 earnings, which saw a net profit after tax up 1.5% to $33 million. The company now targeting $65 million profit before tax in the next 4 years. In May, the NZX and ASX listed company reported a 7% increase in revenue to $470 million, and earnings for interest and tax up 12% to $58.6 million. Commercial highlights for the financial year includes entry into the NZX 50 Portfolio Index and Midcap Index. To continue to expand its network with dealerships in Timaru and Napier. You should go check out that story. There's a whole bunch of discussion there around what they're doing and their local strategy. I think it may seem a bit bullshit to be picking a big profit when the market's in the toilet. But the reality is, for someone like Turners, they do have the capital and the wherewithal to survive this kind of thing without necessarily shrinking their footprint or shrinking what they do. and so they potentially will have the chance to come out of this with a bigger share of the market. In fact, I'd argue they will come out of this with a bigger share of the market. So, yeah, it makes logical sense.
2028 is 4 years away. And I think, if they can survive till 2025 and get their costs under control, and then they grow, they've got every chance of achieving that target. And I think good on them for putting it out there. I wouldn't bet against it, but it is a challenging target. So let's see what happens.
Time to go and chuck a few of your retirement dollars on Turner shares?
Well, I'm not very cashed up at the moment. We've got a property, that settlement's still 11 months away because we sold it to a developer. So no, yeah.
Is that the famous old office? Is it?
Yeah, that's the famous old office. It's it went unconditional in May, but it's got a 12-month settlement date. So we've put tenants in it, but. Turners seem to be running a tight ship. It seems to be well managed from my perspective. They don't seem to be putting too many feet in wrong places at the moment, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Now, that is the news for this week. There is more out there, but we've just kept this relatively tight because we're all busy. We're busy week with a couple of vehicle launches this week, the Kia EV5 and the Hyundai Santa Fe. Interesting. Both of those brands didn't seem too unhappy about the fact that stock's not here yet. It's almost like the further out you can push stuff at the moment, the happier you are. I don't particularly care with the EV5. They don't get cars significantly on the ground till September, and that works for them, they reckon. But yeah, interesting to see that there's still confusion on the market as to what's going on. Now, it's going to be good to have Graeme back next week. I'm sure he'll have lots of stories from America. Quite a few people watching live today. Thank you so much for joining us. We do really appreciate that people do jump online and do it. We know most people watch us afterwards, but to see some people watching us live is handy. Now, we have, I always like keep a little bit of a tidbit for the end. We are not completely ready to fully announce and confirm it yet, but we are very much in the final throes of sorting out an AutoTalk Live in late October, early November for all you wonderful dealers down there in the Christchurch area or the South Island, or for that matter, anyone north who wants to jump on a plane. We've had such good feedback from the Auckland event that a lot of our commercial partners have been interested in jumping on board and hanging out with us in Christchurch as well. So we will come out with an announcement of that in the next week or two, maybe in next week's AutoTalk. There's an AutoTalk magazine coming out on Thursday. If you are interested in that, either in putting your name down early for a table, because we've already had indications for a lot of the tables already from our commercial clients, or you are interested in getting your brand out at that event, then email deborah@automediagroup.co.nz or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Speaker-wise, if we can get this across the line, we have some really great names, including some of the most popular discussions from the AutoTalk event, such as Stephen Timperley going through the Deloitte's industry benchmarks. So if we can get that across the line, then that will be coming in late October and November. Get excited about that. That's all today. You're off on a motorbike or a caravan or something for the weekend, David?
No, I am in the middle of getting a new motorbike, but I need to have some things done to it. So I've been busy organising, getting some parts taken off it and swapping them out. So it's all the fun and games of setting a bike up before I take ownership of it. It's an older cruiser motorbike that I've picked up cheaply. So I'm just replacing a few parts. Yeah, a bit of fun, nice retirement project.
Something a bit more comfortable.
Yes. Well, yes. Long trips are probably not going to be done on it. We'll do that in New Zealand in the caravan when we get around to it. But yes, motorbiking is still a great pastime. So looking forward to getting out there in the next few weeks.
Yeah, awesome. Look, thanks so much, David, and thanks so much for joining us for the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap Live Thingamawhat's It. We'll catch you next Friday with Graeme McDonald. Done.
35 minutes.
A lot of people watching on Twitter. Weird. We must have hit the algorithm right this time. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because we don't get linked. So most people watch us on LinkedIn, but I can't see live LinkedIn stats. I can only ever see YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter or X. And yeah. Oh.
The EV5, that looks like a really interesting car. It's coming. Good on them for having the longer range battery in all of the models. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. And they'll sweep up that market that the Hyundai Kona's always had. Hyundai Kona's always had that fleet default market because it could do the long range without any issues, and this will do that.
It's a better looking car too, in my view.
Yeah. It's good. The thing that bugs me about yesterday was the pricing got released ages ago. If you went to the actual events they were holding, and we ran a big thing and got like 70,000 views of it, but the Herald and stuff jump up today going, "Oh, they've just released the pricing." I'm like, no, you've just realized they've released the pricing. Do your fucking work.
Herald, I have a nickname for Herald, the Herald, and particularly the Herald Driven. The Herald Driven I refer to as Johnny Come Lately.
Yeah. Look, anyway.
By the time I've read stories in the Herald, I've read them elsewhere about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. We weirdly, AutoTalk has got a lot more traffic lately because we've been running a lot of that news too. But we've been Google News certified now. You can't do your self-pay. Google goes and picks you. So if you search, and we for a long time we were Bing News. So if you go and search on Microsoft, then you got us. But now if you search on Google too, we come up pretty much near top. So
cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sweet.
All right. Well, you have a good weekend.
Will do. Catch you later.
All right. Cheers.